I gotta say, I really enjoyed this. Like,
Really?
I really deeply enjoyed this movie.
The more I think about it, the more I like it. And I was when it ended, I was like, huh. And then a couple of days go by, and you start like, this is a pretty great satire.
Well, and to me, what I really like about it is you start out with them doing their like super indie, their like $25,000 super indie, and then they
But
do
they're
their
backwards. Did you guys like they're playing the
yes,
opposite of the
Yeah,
yes,
game?
they
yeah, pretty
are.
much. Yeah.
And then they do their like normal indie, their like $500,000 $1 million movie, and then they start getting a budget for like was it synchronicity or whatever the name of that one was? Synchronic, yeah.
That's a Hollywood movie.
Right, and then they do She Dies
Marvel.
Tomorrow, which is a Hollywood movie, and they do
Oh
their
god,
turn.
that was the worst fucking movie.
They do their turn.
Wait, what?
Oh.
How are they
did
involved in
two
She Dies
Marvels.
Tomorrow?
They helped like
Producers?
produce that.
Yeah,
Were they?
yeah,
Oh,
That was
God.
a terrible film.
Yeah.
yeah. They really like the
They're
script.
just
They
they're
really
just
like
friends
the-
with Amy Seismit's probably.
Can't you see the DNA there? I mean, common
I
to
know
this.
you can see the DNA. There's definitely a trace all the way
Well,
through.
so hold on. Let me finish. So then they do their turn on Moon Knight, and they do that, and then it's like, oh, what if we go back and do another super indie with everything that we learned?
Mhm.
Like it's very much this, like you can see the sort of growth of them as filmmakers, and they're trying to just pull it back in real quick.
What if we did another cheap one and just stayed in the apartment and it was just us?
Wait, do you
My
remember,
apartment. It's fucking Justin Benson's
do you-
apartment.
do you remember
I
it's-
figured.
hold on, you remember the
Guys,
credits?
see this? At
Is
the
the
end?
credits? Yes, that's the thing I was going to talk about. That
What
is
does
the
that
thing
say?
that informs the
Making
entire
movies with
film.
Film
friends.
is dedicated
All about
to
making movies,
with
hanging
your
out with
friends.
your bros,
You
and
should
making
never.
movies.
I heard once you should never make movies with your friends.
No, you should make it with.
I think you should
You should make
definitely
it with
make movies with your
Sound
friends.
like shit.
Mhm.
Well, this is my opportunity
Well, this one doesn't.
to talk about what these guys are about because I've seen 3 of them now. You've done the entire trilogy, right?
Yeah,
One
you've
thing
seen
I've,
children.
I've absorbed all 3 of the films now, and I have a
Well,
thesis
Synchronic's
of
more
what
of
these
a
guys are about.
Okay, let's
These
go,
guys-
Scott. Let's go.
Go, Scott, you have the floor.
Thank you. These guys are about the loss of status of men in America. They talk about it incessantly in all their films because they're always about men who have lost their place in the world and are outside of everything. They're they're in rural San Diego. They're in the weird little apartments in LA. And it's all about trying to find meaning in basically media. They're always obsessed with film and video and tape and things like that.
Mhm.
This is very much a description of the situation the American males are these days because they feel like they've been abandoned by larger society. They do feel like they've lost their primacy in things. And these guys, I keep saying this theme over and over again. These guys are trying to kind of make meaning out of nothing, out of scraps and oddments out in the universe. Conspiracy theories, strange things they
Well,
see in the sky.
you're opening up something that is actually happening, but it's a whole different discussion. But
Well, these guys are.
But I think it's relevant. I think Scott's onto something here.
No, but the thing is,
don't
this
disagree with
is kind of an overarching theme. It isn't about this film specifically. This film is about something else, but it's. I think it's one of the themes they hit on a lot in this film, in all their movies. That's it.
No, I thought I don't disagree. I mean, I've sat through enough pointless fucking YouTube videos, pseudo documentaries. I mean, even a lot of the crap that I see on Netflix,
Mhm.
where it's like every little thing is focused on and blown out of proportion, either through editing or production value or what. And this movie got funnier for me as it kept going.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, I realized like, oh, we're never actually going to get to the bottom of what's actually happening. But this is really about the swirl that these two guys are going through, trying to desperately make something
Create meaning out of meaninglessness.
Yeah.
That's what
Mhm.
they're all about. It's crazy.
But
And it's
we've
weird-
never gotten to the bottom of anything that's happened in any of their movies.
No,
Like,
that's
there's
true.
no-
They never
really.
do. They never do. It's all
I
about
mean,
the
this movie
journey.
teases with little, I mean, like this guy, I mean, like you guys probably all saw, like, there's like, these guys showed up, the fucking entity statue showed up a couple
They
times.
talk about how there's some sort of issue with like time in San Diego or just
Yeah.
outside of San Diego.
Mhm.
The weed that they're smoking is red. Like the nootropics that he's taking are very similar to the drug from Synchronic. Like they're very much going like, this is the same universe, you fuckers.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
it is.
But it's kind of almost it's almost self-parodies makes it sound like it's
it's self-involved.
Self-referential.
But no, they're
building
definitely like they're riffing on this now.
I think self-parody is not inaccurate, that they're kind of now aware at this point what their brand is, and now they're taking a step back, and it's like, let's make a documentary about these guys.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Let me also say a second thing. I think this is the best film of theirs I've seen. I thought it was beautifully put together. It was the photography was remarkably kind of lush, and I love the bits
Super
of detail where, like,
widescreen.
they're talking and there's a fucking fire going behind them.
Yeah,
or
that
there's
was
like
cool.
out there and there's a plane going whoosh across the top. It's like, they know LA
triangle shit going on now.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, living in LA is very much like as being in the middle of like chaos. There's stuff going around you don't understand, and you can never understand. You're on the edge of disaster all the time, and that feel is in this film really hard. It's like,
and you have a couple of side characters who are just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like,
exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Endless editors.
Yeah, they're on 7 editors. Like, it's
that'll happen.
Am I gonna get paid?
Weirdly, it seems like this is. I agree that this, in some ways, although it's a small picture, it's like their best looking effort to date. That's
what I'm saying.
It's their slickest. It's their slickest. Also, the performances are the most even and measured and well done.
The acting was pretty good.
The acting's pretty good, man.
Especially once you're like, oh wait, now they flip roles. That's the dominant and that's the submissive. Whereas in movies it was the opposite.
That's a weird way of putting it, but yes, I agree with you.
and also, you think early on, you think that Levi is the problem because of, like, you hear him talk about the conviction, and then you hear about the sex offender registry, and then every time he's got a good explanation for it. And as that goes along, what's the other character's name? I can't remember now. John.
John.
Yeah. John gets more and more menacing as it goes along.
True, no shit. Because he gets more and more control over the project, and he actually sees the dollar signs behind it.
And that scene where he finally just like lashes out at him and sort of dresses him down it's vicious, man.
Yeah, it is. It's not good.
Yeah.
This movie also does some really good time, like how you tell time has passed. So like it starts out with like John doesn't smoke really, and then he's like, "Oh, do you want one for the road?" And then the next time they're both smoking, and then it's like, "Oh, well, I don't drink." And then
he doesn't drink at first, and then he's drinking like a
yeah, and they're sharing the beer, and then eventually it's like, "Oh, do you want to go to the bar?" And then Levi has quit smoking and he's vaping through the middle of the movie.
I will say 2 of the least convincing smokers on screen I've ever seen in my life.
Well, it's LA, it's just
neither of these guys look like they're inhaling.
No, that's a pet peeve for me. Like, when you can tell when someone doesn't really smoke, I hate that.
No, these guys are not smoking.
Like, even if you actually don't smoke as an actor, you better fucking learn how to for the role.
Also, he is though definitely vaping. Like, the vaping he's actually doing that.
Right.
Yeah, because vaping is fucking ridiculous and for retards. So, like, just
Well, mind you, I thought
that's fired.
The most authentic part for me was when they started geeking out about cameras and like retorting everything, and they started obsessing over like oh, I gotta get the thing with the thing and the right thing, and it's like it's really nuts.
The iPhone falling off of the tripod.
I think that's where they're from. I think that makes them more excited about anything in there is how they're going to cover it rather than what they're covering.
They're also constantly fucking up and not starting the cameras.
Yeah,
like
that too. See, there's also that part of it. It's like they're talking about the technology and how they're going to do it rather than actually figuring out what the hell's going on.
That's very good idiots trying to make a movie.
Yeah,
I felt, talking about the documentary framing device thing, I felt that they either should have committed to that from the get-go, because it kind of felt like they should have either dropped it or deployed it more consistently and with more conviction. Because it was like, oh, this is supposed to, the whole thing is supposed to be a documentary where they're playing themselves.
I can see that. It was kind of in and out of its own story.
It didn't gel for me. The whole movie didn't gel for me. I know you guys liked it, but for me, this is my least favorite effort.
Oh, Jared hated it. Jared fucking
didn't,
hated it.
I didn't say anything. No, because I have a confession to make. I'm
didn't-
sorry, I didn't finish it. I ran out.
That's okay. That's fine.
Did
No,
you
no,
even watch
listen.
the other two?
I watched like a good section of it, and it wasn't because. Listen, first of all, I found it really, really boring. What I did see.
It's slow, man. Nothing
And-
helps.
Somebody
but
online
I
said-
do agree with its production value wise. It's the best thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
Yes. Performance wise.
Wait,
But I
wait,
found-
you haven't. You guys, most of you guys haven't seen Synchronic.
No, I saw Synchronic. That was good.
But I watched your.
I did all three after the
But I
first
did,
one.
I did your trilogy though, because even though I
I
wasn't
did a
here
trilogy
for the-
too. Yeah,
I wasn't here for the Endless. I went back and I watched the Endless, and I watched the whole thing. And this one, I didn't make it through, not because I just had other things, but I will say this though: out of what I saw of this, I was very bored, even though it looked better. But I really want to know, and spoilers galore. Please tell me all of them. I want to know where these guys went on this, but I'll say this just kind of almost naively or ignorantly, that I think the first one, what was it called?
Resolution.
That's my favorite one.
Really interesting.
Yeah, because that was the only one that actually scared me.
Okay.
And that's the only one that
The Endless isn't scary at all.
I thought the acting was really good.
This has moments, but it's not even.
But I think
This is not a scary film.
What's it called? Resolution,
then Endless, then this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Resolution was like scrappy.
Yeah.
the way that I
Well, it
felt.
was literally scrappy. It was like
Yeah,
thrown
I
together
felt
with
that
like.
the other ones here are not scrappy anymore.
Yeah.
Even though the Endless was fun, but the end of the Endless kind of lost me, to be honest. Like it was like, now we're just you're essentially doing this really smart, cool thing, but at the very end, you're just doing Twister. So I don't know.
I'm on the opposite side, Jared. I think that this
You
film.
mean Twister the movie or Twister the game? I need to
Twister
know.
the movie.
Yeah, actually, okay, good. I thought this film was more engaging because it actually had better.
Could've gone either way.
It had better effects. I thought that it.
But yeah, like I said before,
think
like
that
I said
the stuff with
earlier,
the
this is
planes
the best
flying
production
over
value
and
they've
the
ever
fires
done.
going.
for
I
sure.
thought it was actually kind of more effective.
But tell me,
But to me, it was like it was kind of going back to that thing where you felt like in Resolution, where they were throwing out like all these things that they're clearly obsessed with, the weird old media and
I do love
conspiracy
the way
theories.
Tapes and
They're
making
throwing
beer.
again with this
I
one.
love
They're
how they
throwing
work
out
their
everything they can
together.
think of. There's coyotes and airplanes and Rosicrucians and
No,
I do love.
it's fucking
hold
everything.
on,
And very
hold on.
little of it.
Whoa,
For me,
no,
very
no,
little of it sticks.
Hold on. Two things. One, to sort of address Scott's point, that is sort of how a lot of people are now in terms of like this is true about people who believe if you believe one conspiracy theory, it's much more likely that you believe many conspiracy
Yes.
theories.
Yeah, but for
Like
sure.
that's how, and those people get obsessed because we live in a world that feeds those obsessions.
and we can't
like,
figure it out
it's-
because the world's complex now.
And this guy obviously has some sort of I'm talking about John specifically, has some sort of screw loose up there because he continues to go to this church despite the fact that they've taken all of his money and keep telling him to believe the end of the world is good. That's
But in this movie, is it the long hair guy?
No,
The other
it's
guy.
It's the other guy.
the other guy's in it. The other guy's in like some kind of fundamentalist culty church.
Which
Right.
comes up in a couple of their films about running
Yes.
into these weird cults. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
that's the
theme
whole
with
thing
these
of the
guys.
Endless. Is the whole.
And I very much think that the cult from both of the other two movies that's also referenced in Synchronic is this church. I think it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
No,
They also mentioned the beer, didn't they?
Yes.
These guys are
The beer that they brew in the previous movie. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
These guys are
Mind you,
brilliant
the one
about.
thing. Go ahead.
These guys are brilliant about putting their through line.
It's
Mhm.
true.
What
They
I
hit
mean
their
is like
they hit their themes hard.
incorporating every single. Like they do it so they're very smart, to be honest. Like they're putting the first movie into this movie into the next movie, and they do it in a way that is not cliche. It's not trite. It doesn't feel. It feels so organic, but it actually feels inspired.
There's also a reference to Moon Knight in this, which I think is fucking
I
fantastic.
missed
Oh,
it.
really?
What was it?
Is there?
It's the door There's the door on the plane.
Oh, right. It's a real.
That's
wow.
from the fucking 8th episode of Moon Knight. Like,
I'll be
it's
damned. That's
literally
great.
that.
I did not catch
Well,
that.
that was from the episode number
So
8.
so
Now,
Jared-
mind you,
Jared-
I want to point out. Hold on, this is the thing that but Jared probably didn't see this part because it's like later in the film. But there's a part where they obsess about this guy from the early 20th century who designed parts of the city to be these big triangular patterns.
Fred Thompson.
Yeah, that was great because he kept showing his image in all these little old photos and stock stuff they over and over again.
I
You know
like
what that
that.
reminded me of was the I don't know, John, I dragged John to this place, but the Museum of Jurassic Technology.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where it's like this mysterious, weird, alternative version of history of all kinds. And that's what this feels like. I think they definitely visited that place a couple
Well, it
times.
also feels like Tyler Durden, and I'll bet if you zoom
Yeah.
in on that, it's one of them in a beard.
Probably.
Like,
Yeah.
because
this whole thing takes place in that apartment, correct?
Pretty much.
Almost.
Not
Almost.
More or less. Maybe
yeah,
not.
but if they leave, they never go particularly far away, except for when they go to the desert and they find more weird shit that's
think-
then linked to the beach.
Oh, they go to Risk Cutters territory again too. Just
Yeah.
They go to-
right.
What they do is they go to the edge of the world in both directions from Dark City.
That's right.
Like,
Okay,
that's
that's
where
another
they
way of looking
go.
at it.
So
That's where they
Jared, to
go.
answer your question, and I'm not going to get too heavy into spoiler territory, but the movie isn't interested in whether or not all the phenomenon ties up and makes sense. The movie is more interested in these two knuckleheads trying to make sense of the nonsensical
Yeah.
and thinking they're going to make
And they are
sense.
knuckleheads, and that's a through line as well. And I loved not to go off track, but I loved in the Endless, because I wasn't here when you guys discussed that, and I'm sure you did it thoroughly. But I loved in the Endless when they met Resolution. That was amazing.
Oh, that's one of my favorite parts of that movie.
That was neat.
Mhm.
That was neat.
And when you
Except that
for me-
fucking guy's hand, it's the wrong hand with the handcuff.
I know you're so obsessed about that, aren't
I'm
you?
so pissed about that.
That's a different timeline. They're in a different
Yes.
loop.
Right.
So I'm gonna go all the way into spoiler territory here because I think the spoilers are pretty fucking interesting. So what happens is they eventually have a falling out, and Levi keeps saying that he's gonna leave. Levi's the long-haired one. He keeps saying that he's gonna leave. He's like, I'm gonna leave. I don't want to do this anymore. You're fucking crazy. And then John just goes off on him. And there's this whole thing where he talks about you're a fuck up and you're not gonna do anything with your life and all of that other stuff.
you got
And
tattoos, that's how we know you're a fuck up.
and then they go to they split up, and John goes down and gets in his car and he's about to leave, and there's another earthquake and it just shakes the whole building.
Right.
And he comes back upstairs and he's like, oh, yeah, that happened. I felt it too. It's not just you up here who's feeling that. And so then they decide that they're going to continue to work together. And they go to bed that night, and John wakes up and he's floating all the way up on the ceiling.
Mhm.
And he's floating all the way up on the ceiling. And when he wakes up, gravity comes back and he falls back down. And he goes looking for Levi, and he finds a cigarette lit on the balcony. And Levi's gone. And he walks outside. And when he comes outside, he looks up and there's all these fireworks going off because it's New Year's Eve.
Right.
And he sees something up in the sky, which you kind of think is him. And then what it is it's the crystal from the beginning. It's
The ashtray.
The ashtray.
The ashtray,
falls
yeah.
out of the sky.
The
and
haunted ashtray.
smashes into the ground next to him.
The movie about
And then
a
it-
haunted ashtray.
Yes, it is.
And then it cuts to
I
back to the
love that. That's a
documentary.
great pitch. Sorry.
And it comes back.
I
to
love
the,
it.
It comes back to the documentary, and
Oh,
you find out that Levi actually did float up into the sky and just fell into the hills and died.
Right.
No,
just
if you go back
literally-
and I pull a screenshot. His dead body is in front of that abandoned house that they found in the desert.
Oh, is it in the desert?
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
It's a little. It's
And
a
he's
little
all bloody and
ambiguous.
busted up, and his legs
Oh
going
my
the
God,
wrong
I got a lot of
way.
work to do next week.
And so then you find out.
That's
that
this movie?
yeah. And so then you find out that
Shit, I gotta
they're on like 7 editors deep in this because they kept trying to like make this story
They
and
kept
they don't
exploding like the drummers in Spinal Tap.
More or
Right, well,
less.
and they don't pay them, so they like walk away with a bunch of footage and that kind of stuff. Like it gets real weird, but then finally at the end of it, it's like the John is he's trying to sort of justify everything. And they kind of ask him like, oh, how do you feel about the fact that this guy died? And he's like, well, I guess my calculations were wrong.
Ah,
And they're like, well, which ones? And he's like, well, some of them. And that's sort of the end of the movie. Like, it's just
Like
sort
that's
of
an
like
answer.
what you get. Well, what I feel like you get out of all of that is the fact that I don't think this is the first time he's done this. Like, I honestly believe that John's done this multiple times before.
Everybody who moves into that building, he's like, "What's up?"
Yes. His time loop is continually trying to do this with people who come into this building, and it never works out. But he keeps coming up with these calculations, and he's writing down the calculations all over the room in there to try to figure it out of how can I get out of this? And these people keep coming in and dying and then going back out. And now the way he's trying to get out of it is by making people aware of it. Like that's what the documentaries.
I've heard worse explanations of this thing. It's not bad.
I'll tell you,
Huh?
the first time I saw Lebowski, me and Sandy walked out of the theater going, "What the fuck was that? What even about?"
Yes.
And what I realized after like the 5th or 6th viewing is, it's not a. It doesn't. The Raymond Chandler shit. No, none of that matters. The movie is about Los Angeles.
Yo, this film
That's what this movie is about.
This film is a love letter to LA in a lot of ways.
Also, they talk about how nobody talks about the fucking coyotes in Los Angeles when Michael Mann has put that in 2 separate fucking movies.
Uh-huh.
Like literally.
No, it's
better filmmakers than you have pointed out the fucking coyotes.
But he did it smartly where he didn't talk about it, he just showed it.
They're not talking about the pretty LA, not like Hollywood and like the nice stuff. They're talking about the weird shit, like low flying airplanes and weird fires and
definitely none of that's ever happened to Michael Mann.
LA is a weird place, and these guys want to show you how weird it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's even a little soliloquy about that. It's like nobody talks about those things.
Yes, exactly.
You know? Everybody talks about the traffic.
This is a universe where Michael Mann doesn't exist.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Well, I mean, I wish I love what these guys do, and I wish I loved this one more, but it didn't. It felt to me like they were going back to the well one too many times, and there wasn't enough there for me that worked. But what I hope, because they were sort of parodying themselves in this one, that they're self-aware and that maybe the next movie's gonna be fucking awesome because they're gonna get this out of their system.
I still go back to I just like that first one so much.
I feel like Moon Knight.
And I like the Endless the most, so it's interesting.
And Synchronic, I also like a lot.
Synchronic's cool, but it's its own thing. It's not part of this.
I like this.
No, it is part of this.
I like this the most.
The drug in Synchronic is based off of the herb from the other 2 movies. It's like in the plot. If you go back and watch it, it's in there.
Yeah, I'll have to watch it again.
You might be right.
I told you to pick that anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I like this the most. I think that the thesis they put out in front is actually what this film's really about, but that's okay. That's all its details.
So everybody's got their own favorite from the trilogy.
Don't forget that Justin Benson's probably going to watch this. Probably going to watch this episode.
Oh, he's not.
He's gonna, man. He watches. He responds. Also, one of the best things I read about this and as a review is that someone said it was pretty entertaining, but it was 1/2 hour too long. I agree with that. It's 1/2 hour too long.
Yeah, or about 20 minutes. Yeah,
maybe 20 minutes. 20 minutes. They should have there's 17 editors. They should have brought down a little bit.
You can
linear.
dial all this shit back. Yeah.
I did laugh a lot at this movie though.
I had a couple. It was pretty funny.
It's interesting that you guys are sort of seeing it as a comedy because that kind of that sailed over my head.
Once I realized that, this is just going to be just like endless.
This is a throwing your hands up in the air comedy. It's like, no, fuck it, it's funny.
Well, no, I can't remember. There's a point in the movie where I feel like, oh no, this is like really leaning in on the comedy thing.
It's deeply contextually ironic. Like the
Yeah,
whole,
that's the thing. Yeah.
like you have to have a pretty deep love of irony to find this funny.
Okay.
So I did find this pretty fucking funny. Like,
All right. Well,
This is my least favorite of the three, but I still liked it. Thumbs up.
all right. My
I'll
favorite.
I'll say that.
My favorite of the three. Thumbs up. I thought it was beautifully done.
my absolute favorite of the three.
Uh
I mean, because I wasn't here for the endless.
huh. Can you make
I'm
a
gonna-
question mark
and,
with your
and,
fingers?
and even though I didn't
Like
finish this,
that?
just them as creators, I'm going to give it a thumbs up.